Jet Porter,
Yeah.
what is a homestead?
Homestead is like a farm.
It's like a farm? And what do you do there?
Make a lot of money and help animals.
Make a lot of money and help animals. Okay, good job.
A homestead is lands with animals in a home. You live on it and you like have gardens and you raise crops and have animals.
Why?
Because you want to make money and food.
All right, Reagan, what is a homestead?
A place where they have a lot of old stuff.
It's a small farm with a garden and some animals. So it's like a farm, a little farm.
A homestead is, I think it's a farm that has like a garden and stuff, and it's self-sustaining, like it sustains itself.
What's that mean?
Like that it provides its own food. Like you have a garden for your vegetables, and you maybe have a few cows for meat and stuff like that. I think. Not exactly sure.
Okay,
Something like that.
Hey guys, Josh here at Porter Valley Ranch, and today we're not at Porter Valley Ranch. We are at the Harn Homestead, which is in the heart of Oklahoma City. So we wanted to bring our kids here today because we are under the umbrella of what's considered homesteaders. Homestead YouTube, you guys have all heard of Arms Family Homestead, but not a lot of people know what homesteading is or what a homestead is, including our kids. So we wanted to bring them here to show them some history. This piece of property has a lot of history. The person who founded this land was actually brought here to oversee land disputes after the land run in the late 1800s. And this property stayed. There are a lot of really cool buildings. There's a lot of history here. So we wanted to bring our kids here to show them some of the history of homesteading. So the definition of a homestead, according to the dictionary, is a house, particularly a farmhouse, and outbuildings around it. But the definition according to the Homesteading Act of 1862 is a piece of property that was settled. It was usually 160 acres, and that land was given to the person or persons who settled it as long as they were dedicated to farming it for at least 5 years. So modern homesteading, we want to be like those people. It sounds great to think you could get 160 acres or sometimes 40 acres in Oklahoma's case for free by going to a place and getting the land. But what you don't think about is that they were going to unsettled land. They were leaving civilization. They were leaving comfort like electricity or water or safety, and they were going into the wilderness. They were going to areas that were unsettled and untamed, and they were committing to being there for 5 years, usually alone, living in a house like this or maybe even smaller. Maybe it was just a lean-to or a cave, but they were going into the wilderness and they were living off of that land for at least 5 years in order to get that land for free. So the modern homesteaders like us are trying to be more like them. Most of us aren't living off-grid. Off-grid is a completely different genre. But for us and people like us, we are trying to get back to our roots of living off of the land as much as possible, of learning how to give to the land so the land gives back to us, and trying to live a simpler life. Our life is so cluttered, and when you think about these people that were just living off the land and farming, it was a hard life, but it was a peaceful and rewarding life because everything they put in, they were able to sow back out. So that's where we're trying to get, is a little bit closer to our heritage and to the history of the American settlers.
So it's really cool to get to see this area that was the garden for the family on the homestead. And just to put it in perspective for us, this would have been a working garden for a family of 5. Now they're not utilizing the entire property at this time, but this is about the amount of land that they used. And it's just fascinating to me because we have a safety net, we have a backup. So if we have a bad crop that year, we can go to the grocery store, we can go to the farmer's market, we can replace it, no problem. But obviously for them, it had dire consequences, and so they had to be very diligent in their work that they did every day in the garden, and very faithful to know that God was going to provide what they needed each year. And so just that dependence is something that I feel like a lot of us are kind of lacking, and that's what the homesteading community is kind of trying to get back. Just the independence and being able to support our own needs and trust God to bring it to us instead of just getting it online or at the grocery store.
Do ice skating.
Storage area.
What?
This was an office, like, so if he had to go out of town, the people would stay in this man's house. This is the outhouse, it looks like.
Where's the man's house?
So, okay, so this is interesting. Do you guys see this term sharecropped?
Yeah.
So a lot of our family used to do what's called sharecropping. So what it meant was this guy, Mr. Harn, probably owned the land, but since he traveled a lot, other people would come plant and farm on his land. So our family, the Porters that lived in like Ardmore and Gainesville, all those areas, they would do sharecropping because they didn't have enough money to buy land. So they would farm on other people's land, and then they would keep part of the money and they would give part of the money away. So that's what it's called, sharecropping. So this is a cellar.
I think everyone can.
If you guys remember at Papa's old house, there was one of these that fell in. So they dig and see how the door's down there?
Whoa.
It's like partway underground.
My grandma
Uh-huh.
like that.
So it's partway underground, and that keeps it cool down there. So they didn't have refrigerators, so they would build that, and then things would stay underground and they would keep like preserved. So behind me you can see the Oklahoma State Capitol building, which is where all the legislature meets and makes laws for our state. Whenever they moved the state capitol from Guthrie to Oklahoma City, the Harn family actually donated the 40 acres for them to build the capitol on. So it's pretty cool that it's there, and then just a few blocks away there's this homestead that still is pretty much in its original state, just a few blocks away from what is setting the future of our state, and it's juxtaposed with this, which was the history and the past of our state. But this person, they bought more than that. They bought 160 acres, so they had a couple pieces of land.
So are we going to look in at your house?
So this house,
Wait, only 1909?
this house was moved to its current location in 1909.
So they moved the house?
Mm-hmm.
How do they move the house?
They just kind of take it apart like Legos and move it where it's going to go and put it back together.
Did they move that?
The barn, I bet it was built here. We'll see. This would have been, what is that? So
That's a clothing.
it's a clothesline. So
Oh, that's a...
people hang clothes on it after you wash them, and that's how they dry.
I thought that it would be higher.
Well, they're a little saggy.
Okay.
You could probably make it tighter if you wanted to. So this barn was built in 1904.
It's already in its place.
Oh, we can look at it.
Yeah, it's because it's pretty muddy
It's
in there.
neat.
Oh, that's a cool barn.
Do you think this is the real stuff that was in it?
So some of it is, and some of it's a little more modern. Like that, those are like, they would go around the neck of either a horse or donkey or something that was pulling a plow, right?
I can't believe the hay lasted that long.
So it's all old farming equipment.
They were,
And then they put the hay up there on the second story. And when they wanted to feed it, they would open this door and they would throw hay out of the top. Oh, so hey, that in there, I think is the Surrey from Oklahoma.
That's the what?
Yeah,
What's the
Surrey with the fringe on top?
Surrey with the fringe on top.
What's the Surrey?
It's the
The little
like
car
the
they ride
little
in.
wagon thing that they're riding in.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
I think I read
that's
on
yeah,
Travel
there's
Advisor that
fringe
that's
on
the
top.
Surrey with the fringe on top from the movie. Stony Point Schoolhouse was built in 1897 near Crescent. Closed its doors to last classes in 1947. It was moved here in 1986. So this is not original to this property. It was just moved here because this is like a museum area, so it would be preserved.
Well, it's because of the thing.
Yeah. So, but this is a one-room schoolhouse, which meant that all of the kids would all go to school in the same school. So like
if they're like high school.
like Jet through high school would all be in, well, actually most kids in high school didn't go to school back then. By the time they get to like Zeke's age, they would just be working in the field. But all of you kids would all go to school together with
Except
one
me.
teacher.
Yes, I graduate.
Zeke, and you'd be farming.
Smile.
So we feel like it's important to bring our kids and our nieces, Molly and Reagan, to places like this so they can understand their history. There's a lot of words floating around right now that are buzzwords, like privilege and like entitlement and things like that. And we want them to understand that we got where we are because our ancestors worked hard in places like this. My family were all farmers and ranchers. I don't know exactly when they moved here. I need to ask my Aunt Linda, who's probably going to watch this. So Linda, I need some history. But they moved here from Kentucky. They were all sharecroppers and farmers and ranchers in the Oklahoma and Texas area. So they grew up on places like this. My dad grew up on a farm that looked not much different than some of these buildings.
It's also super respectful to look back and know how self-reliant they were and that they had real life-saving skills. A lot of times we've talked about since in Corona how some of the friends we have in Africa survived better than some of the Americans if all of the electricity and the food supply and all of that had gone away. And that's just something as Americans we see people have gotten away from, especially kids. And so we want them to understand and respect the skills that it takes and know that if they needed to, they could do that as well.
So this is a place which is literally just a couple minutes away from the hub of entertainment for Oklahoma City. You have Bricktown, you have River Sports, you have all these things, you have the Capitol just a few blocks away, and this is a step back in time to let us understand where we came from and what we're made from so that we can know where we're going and go somewhere on purpose.
Now let me go.
Okay, now Mr. Harn purchased his property for $425.
Are you serious?
In 1891. So what do you think $425 would buy today?
Not even a cell phone.
About a bike.
A bike?
No, not a bike.
That's a nice bike.
Reagan,
Well, yeah, a bike.
what do you think $425 would buy?
Oh, what?
Wait, 4,200.
Maybe a little electric scooter.
Okay, Zeke,
Like an electric scooter.
electric scooter.
A hoverboard.
Hoverboard. Kai?
And a gaming system.
Okay, now Kai's getting closer.
A TV.
A TV, yes.
A phone.
A phone. Reagan, you're just taking so long.
Four-wheeler.
A four-wheeler, a
No.
really cheap four-wheeler. Okay, so what I just learned is that my kids have a very poor understanding of money. It would probably be about a gaming system, like a PS4, PS5. So for the price of a PS4, PS5, which you could now put in a small shelf in your house, you could have purchased this land and built this house.
And all the other stuff.
And it's starting to rain. We planned this whole day in Oklahoma City. We were going to come here to the Harn Homestead. We were going to go down to Oklahoma City downtown, which is called Bricktown. They have a new park called Scissortail Park, which has a lot of fun things to do. We were going to go to the Oklahoma City bombing memorial, but unfortunately it has rained almost all day, every day for the last week or two. So luckily we got in about an hour of sunlight out here without rain, so we could film some and see some. So I don't know what the rest of the day is going to have because it looks like it's going to rain. But if you're ever in Oklahoma City, this is a great place to go. We did not get to go in the buildings. You can usually pay $7 and get tours inside the building, but because of the rain, they didn't want us in there with wet shoes because a lot of these things are historical and considered like artifacts. So couldn't go in the buildings, but we had a good time. Hopefully the kids learned a lot, and hopefully we can show you guys some cool history. And hopefully when you're in Oklahoma City, the next time you'll want to come visit this place because it's pretty cool.